few years ago, I decided I should know a little bit more about my history. Where do I really come from? So I completed one of those DNA tests and sent it off. I thought I could be a romantic guy. Maybe I had some Italian in me. Or I've always been a real fashion maven. Maybe I had some French in me. Or perhaps some really cool Viking blood. I got my results back. I was 100% Ashkenazi Jew. There was absolutely nothing else in me. It's like they should have sent the results back in Yiddish. My three teenage children, they weren't surprised at all. They all said to me, "Dad, you are so boring." And they made fun of me even more when they learned that their mother actually did have some Italian in her. She was 92% Ashkenazi and 8% Italian. What does it mean to carry my precious heritage inside of me, with me, every day of my life? 25 years ago, I went to Eastern Europe. I visited the area in Poland where my grandmother grew up. What I discovered is I am very blessed to descend from some incredible people. I learned that for centuries, my ancestors faced a never-ending struggle just to survive. But what I also learned is that despite the challenges, they maintained a passionate commitment to family, to community, and to their Judaism. How did they do it? In the Holocaust, my grandmother lost everything: her childhood, her parents, and almost every member of her extended family. She endured the brutality of life in 3 different concentration camps and several death marches. Yet after coming to America, she was able to build a fulfilling life in her small town of Duncan, Oklahoma. She married, raised 3 Jewish children, and became an active member of her community. She was beloved by Jews and non-Jews alike, and today a wing of the Oklahoma City Downtown Library is named after her. How did she do it? We have people here at Beth Yeshurun who have managed to overcome other serious obstacles and still live such extraordinary lives, like our member Michael Siegel. While in college, he was shot in the head and left for dead during a convenience store robbery. He defied all odds by first surviving, learning to walk and talk again, and then returning to college at the University of Texas. He went on to earn 2 degrees with honors, marry his high school sweetheart Sharon, and became a father to the recently married daughter Sean. The thieves eliminated Mike's ability to pursue his lifelong dream to become a surgeon. However, they cannot eliminate his desire to help others. Today, he continues to be a popular inspirational speaker and a successful social worker at a local trauma hospital, where he devotes his time supporting those who have dealt with similar circumstances. After all he's been through, he wakes up every day with one goal in mind: to bring happiness to his patients and their families. I've seen him in action. He is truly remarkable. How does he do it? I often think about our members, Peter, Aaron, and Willa Berry. They had to live through a tragic car accident that killed their parents in 2011 and left Peter and Aaron paralyzed. This past year, Peter, a 5-star recruit, signed a letter of intent to play Division I wheelchair basketball at the University of Alabama. And next year, Aaron will also be attending Alabama to play wheelchair basketball. After signing that letter of intent, Peter said the following words that I know sum up the feelings of all the Berry children. He said, "My parents gave me a great start to life, and I consider myself to be lucky to learn the lessons from the accident. Meeting people as a result of that crash is one of the greatest gifts I could have been given. The accident has opened up many doors, and I just look at it with my chest out and my chin up." To me, his words testify to the extraordinary young adults the Berries have become. I am often in awe of them. How are they able to do it? This past year, I finished a book that has helped me understand. The book is The Choice, and its author is a woman named Edith Eger. In 2017, The Choice became an international bestseller. And one of the things that made it unusual was that its author was 90 years old, and this was her first book. At age 16, together with her father, mother, and sister, she arrived at Auschwitz in 1944, one of thousands of Jews transported from Hungary. Her parents were murdered on that first day. And with astonishing courage and strength of will, she and her sister survived. And when American soldiers eventually lifted her from a heap of bodies in an Austrian forest, she had pneumonia, typhoid fever, and a broken back. Initially, after the war, she worked in a factory, but eventually she went to university to study psychology and became a successful psychotherapist. She earned her doctorate in clinical psychology at age 50, and today at 92, she's still practicing and writing books, using her own experiences of survival to help others survive their tragedies. She's also a proud mother, grandmother, and great-grandmother. How does she do it? Back in 1944, on their way to Auschwitz, Edith's mother said to her the following: "We don't know where we are going. We don't know what is going to happen. But nobody can take away from you what you put in your own mind." And that advice became her survival mechanism during the war. And after the war, helped her make an important distinction between victimization and victimhood. This is what she says about those two terms. Victimization: at some point we will suffer some kind of affliction or calamity or abuse caused by circumstances or people or institutions over which we have little or no control. This is life for all of us, and this is victimization. It comes from the outside. It's what happens to you. But there's a huge difference between victimization and victimhood. Victimhood comes from the inside. It's how you respond to what happens to you. No one can make you a victim but you. We become victims not because of what happens to us, but when we choose to hold on to our victimization. And by doing so, we develop a victim's mind, a way of thinking and being that is rigid, blaming, stuck in the past, unforgiving, punitive, and without healthy limits or boundaries. Victimhood focuses us on a past that we cannot change, no matter how hard we may try. After the war, Edith Eger understood. No, she could not change what the Nazis did to her early dreams and ambitions, but she could still choose how to fulfill her new personal goals in life. No, she could not change what the Nazis did to her, but she could still choose how to use her experiences in her career as a therapist. And by making positive choices, she liberated herself from being held captive by a negative past. We have learned this extraordinary mindset from other survivors, like the great Viktor Frankl, who said even in Auschwitz, there was one freedom they could not take away, the last of the human freedoms, the freedom to choose how to respond. No one dictates that but ourselves. No, my friends, our challenges may not be the same as those I have spoken about tonight. But there is one thing I have learned as a rabbi. All of us, every single one of us have regrets. We have our resentments, aspects of our past that we wish could have been different. And we are certainly facing an ongoing struggle right now. There's one prayer that has always helped me. It's called the Serenity Prayer. It says, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. The Serenity Prayer was written by the famous Christian theologian Reinhold Niebuhr. And we may think that this prayer is one that only our Christian friends would recite. But in fact, the Serenity Prayer perfectly reflects the time we will spend together over this Yom Kippur. The rabbis, the writers of our liturgy, could not deny the fact that life can change in an instant. They were fully aware of our deep vulnerability. Our prayers often reflect on our limitations as humans. However, the major prayer of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, the Unatana Tokef, tells us that once we accept those limitations, we're then able to move forward. As the prayer reaches its conclusion, it reminds us in stunning and important words, Uteshuvah, Utefilah, Utstakaka, Ma'avrin et Roah HaGezerah. But repentance, prayer, and righteousness avert the severity of the decree. The prayer is calling out to us. Despite our limitations, there are steps we can take, actions that are within our power. Yes, these are the days in which we recognize there are larger forces at play in our lives that are far beyond our control. But we as Jews still have a responsibility and an opportunity to make amends, alter our ways, and grow as human beings. As Moses taught in the last month of his life, see, I'm setting before you today a blessing and a curse. Choose to build a new future based on the blessings of our lives, or choose to dwell on the old curses of the past. Some of the aspects of our lives are within our power. It's up to you. It's all about the courage to change and the wisdom to know how. In C.S. Lewis's The Great Divorce, the narrator of the story visits a gray suburb of hell and finds it populated by souls who are self-imprisoned, incapable of freedom, because their personalities are reduced to old grievances, old gripes, and old protests. His book is powerful because too often we have seen the hell that some choose to remain in for their entire lives. Yes, of course, for some it's understandable. Life just became too difficult. None of us should ever blame a victim. We should never try to minimize anyone else's experience. But neither should we encourage a victim to stay a victim. In most cases, the most important action we can take is to support them in recovering their sense of agency, to help them find a way out. No, it's not easy, but it can help them build a brighter future. There are people who have done so, people who have survived whatever fate threw at them. They refused victimhood, and no one, not even the most tragic of circumstances, could stop them from turning their victimization into some sort of blessing, a renewed sense of purpose, a new mission. And by doing so, they were no longer victims. Through incredible internal strength, they became survivors. More than ever, I believe their stories could benefit all of us. Maybe they could inspire us. We too refuse to allow this god-awful pandemic to make us victims. Instead, we had the ability to turn this pandemic into a blessing. Wouldn't that be the best way to survive this unusual time in history? A friend of mine recently told me about the incredible experience he had raising monarch butterflies. We all know how it works, but I don't know if any of us have actually seen it. You get these tiny eggs that are the size of pinpoints. They become caterpillars who, like middle-aged Jewish men, eat and eat and eat so that they're 2,000 times their original size. And afterwards, they build these extraordinary cocoons. But the cocoons are not something they wrap around themselves. Instead, they accept their new stage with the utmost beauty and literally melt into the cocoon. Then, while in their stationary homes, they make the most of their time strengthening themselves, doing what is necessary so that when they can come out, they can fly. During this unique time, can we do the same? Years from now, I know we want to look back at this time and say, we didn't spend the global pandemic in constant frustration, depression, and anger. We didn't waste our time complaining about restrictions, closings, social distancing, and Schulcloud. All things out of our control. Instead, we were survivors. We used the excess time we were given as a gift. We used our days wisely, learning more about ourselves, figuring out what could be modified or even transformed, fully preparing ourselves. So when it is over, and it will be, we emerge stronger, we emerged healthier, we emerged prepared with better responses to the challenges we would face. So we flew higher than we ever did before. All things in our control. The strength to do so is inside all of us, even if the DNA tests don't explicitly say it. We Jews have always had the resiliency, the faith, and the courage to do so. Can we do so again? Now you may be thinking, Rabbi, is this really worth the internal work involved? So far, I've made it through life. I've even made it through this pandemic exactly the way I am. I'm doing fine. Do I really need to change how I have responded to the trials and hardships of my life? Yom Kippur is that day of the year when only you and God can answer that question. If you want to change, if you need to change. We are surrounded by people who can show you how. We have a tradition that can guide you, and you have a synagogue that wants to help you. This year at Beth Yeshurun, we will embark on a year of facing our challenges in healthier and more effective ways. We will have programs with heroes like Michael Siegel, Aaron Berry, and Edith Eger. Rabbi Fort will be working on interactive programming with an incredible place called Beit Shuvah back in Los Angeles. It's a residential treatment facility guided by spiritual Jewish principles with the mission of healing broken souls and saving the lives of those wrestling with addiction through integrated care. At Beit Shuvah, the house of repentance, they believe that everyone has the right to redemption, and we're excited to work with them, bringing their knowledge to our community. We will also look for inspiration both inside and outside of our Jewish faith. Later this fall, we will welcome Muslim scholar Dr. Manaz Afridi, who will speak on her book, Shoah Through Muslim Eyes. Her book is based on her struggle fighting anti-Semitism within Muslim communities, while teaching her fellow Muslims about the tragedies of the Shoah. We will also welcome Jennifer Tiga, a black German woman who discovered at age 38 that her grandfather was the vicious Nazi commander depicted in Schindler's List. I thought I had problems. And that discovery sent her into a tailspin. How did she overcome this startling discovery? We will also continue Rabbi Morgan's Interfaith Speakers Series, where we will examine what our faith, as well as others, have to say about facing our troubles. And we will also continue to bring you programs with local leaders and national organizations that challenge us to think about important issues in our Houston and Beth Yeshurun communities, like our Reynolds Elementary School partnership. Our goal is to not only help these economically disadvantaged community members, but to also learn and be inspired by these amazing students. Despite the pandemic, we can take on this process together, and I look forward to the experience. Gamar Hatima Tova. May we all be inscribed for a good, healthy, and productive year.